County to order.
I move that the Board of Supervisors enter into a closed meeting for 1, acquisition and disposition of real property per section 2.23711A3 of the Code of Virginia. For 2, legal matters per section 2.23711A of the Code of Virginia as amended. And for personnel per section 2.23711A of the Code of Virginia as amended.
Okay, all in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. Okay, we're going to closed session. We are coming back out of closed session, and I move that the Lancaster County Board of Supervisors adopt the following certification resolution. Whereas the Lancaster County Board of Supervisors convened in a closed meeting on November 18, 2021, pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote on the motion to close the meeting to discuss personnel, legal matters, and acquisition deposition of real property in accordance with section paragraph 2.2-3711.A.1, 2.2-3711.A.8, and 2.2-3711.A.3 of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas section paragraph 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the Board of Supervisors that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Lancaster County Board of Supervisors hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, number one, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting to which this certification applies. And two, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting to which this certification applies. Before a vote is taken on this resolution, is there any member of this board who believes that there was a departure from the requirements of number 1 and number 2 above? If so, identify yourself and state the substance of your matter and why, in your judgment, it was a departure. Hearing no statement, I call the question. Mr. Bellows.
I certify.
Mr. Lee.
I certify.
Mr. Larson.
I certify.
Dr. Westbrook.
I certify.
Mr. Palin, I certify. This certification resolution is adopted. We shall now move on to our regular session. Give me a minute to organize. Yeah. Okay. Okay. At this time, let us stand and do the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. At this particular time, we're going to the public input session. Each person has a 3-minute time limit, and when you get down to 1 minute, I will hold up the sign letting you know that you have 1 minute to conclude your statement. Okay, at this particular time, we have 4 that have signed up. The first one is Ms. Jamie Cockrell.
Hello.
Hi, Ms.
I'm
Cockrell.
Jamie Cockrell, and I live in Muskemon, and I want to go back to the comprehensive plan that was tabled till this month regarding the solar adjustments to the comprehensive plan. So there's the input that we were able to read just of the discussion of your planning committee members. And one of the planning committee members used a justification for removing and striking the information about the building on slopes and the all the other aspects of building in a wetland area. He said, would you rather have coal? That makes no sense. Why is that even a comparison at this point? It's very illogical and totally irrelevant. Coal's on its way out. His comment was unrelated to protecting the high productive soil, the slopes that lead down into the wetlands, and the historical sites that was being stricken or recommended to be stricken. The Board of Supervisors approved the solar project disregarding and ignoring the state and federal codes that would protect the wetlands from damage due to erosion. By removing that wording, you are doing more than ignoring that erosion will occur, you are inviting it. Throughout the last 4 months, this developer was allowed to come into this county, throw money in everybody's faces, purchase access roads prior to approval, sign contracts with landowners prior to approval, and treat us like we don't know what they're up to. Now, this is your last chance to show some integrity, protect our land, stop treating District 1 and District 2 as insignificant compared to the rest of the county because we are less populated. We like it that way. Throughout this whole process, we of District 1 and District 2 have been disenfranchised. We've been ignored because of age, color, socioeconomic factors, or our non-waterfront properties that we have. So I just want there to be one last statement to help avoid any damage to these wetlands that we live on.
Thank you, Ms. Cochran. All right. Next, Pastor Ulysses Turner.
Good evening.
Good evening.
First of all, let me apologize for my attire, standing in the presence of such dignitaries as yourself. When I left the home at 6 o'clock this morning, I had plenty of time to return home and get dressed appropriately, so I apologize. I do want to address again our concern with the speed limit coming into Lively and leaving Lively in front of Beulah Baptist Church. I want to thank David. He did come and he did do an assessment. He did recommend that we get a speed test. So we continue to have very close calls. I had one last night leaving Bible study coming out of Beulah Baptist Church. When David came out, we did identify that it's about 150 yards that the sign would have to be moved if we're able to do that. If we're not able to change the speed limit, we are requesting that we at least consider some blinking signs saying that service is in progress during that time to reduce the speed limit. We need something in place to protect the citizens of District 1 and District 2 when they enter and leave Beulah Baptist Church. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right. Mr. Smart, Robert Smart.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, all members of the board. My son is also here tonight, and he has the copy of the resolution that I'll be talking about. James Madison, when speaking for the adoption of a new constitution, said, "There are more instances of the abridgment of the freedom of the people by gradual and silent encroachments of those in power than by violent and sudden usurpations." Thomas Jefferson said, "It is the manners and spirit of the people which preserve a republican vigor. A degeneracy in these is the canker which soon eats to the heart of its laws and constitution." While serving as President of the United States, John Adams said, "We should be unfaithful to ourselves if we should ever lose sight of the danger to our liberties if anything partial or extraneous should infect the purity of our free, fair, and virtuous and independent elections." These founding fathers risked their lives and their fortunes to help create a new nation where the government was controlled by the people. Their statements expressed loving concerns for the future of that nation. While it is not reasonable to argue that the United States was perfect at its conception, it may reasonably be argued that the United States has slowly evolved, and not always in tranquility, toward attainment of the noble goals written in the Constitution that was finally adopted. But just as James Madison foresaw, the nation may now be trending toward abridgment of the very freedoms protected by the Constitution. If the collective spirit of the people is insufficient to sustain adherence to the Constitution, this will eat to the heart of the Republic. This resolution, which my son would like to introduce, affirms the constitutions of the United States and of the Commonwealth of Virginia, which are governing documents that encompass law and should not be subverted. we, the petitioners, beseech the Lancaster Board of Supervisors to adopt this resolution showing solidarity with other northern neck counties and expressing our desire to faithfully conform to these constitutions.
Can I approach the board now?
Yes,
or
come.
should I wait
You're
until-
too late to sign up.
Yeah.
Okay, come on.
Is that okay? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, and I'm gonna give you 3 minutes.
Okay, and my name is Jason Smart, and it's an honor to present this. I'd like to read this has been passed in 2 other counties so far, and it's been passed in Northumberland County and Westmoreland County, and will likely soon be passed in King George County as well. It's a First Amendment resolution affirming the constitutions of the United States and Virginia, specifically the First Amendment, and I know that this board also passed a Second Amendment resolution. This is actually modeled after that. I'll read it here. Whereas the members of the Board of Supervisors of Lancaster County have taken an oath to defend and uphold the constitutions of the United States and Virginia, and whereas the First Amendment of the United States Constitution reads, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. And whereas Article 1, Section 12 of the Constitution of Virginia reads that the freedoms of speech and of the press are among the great bulwarks of liberty and can never be restrained except by despotic governments, that any citizen may speak freely, write and publish his sentiments on all subjects, being responsible for the abuse of that right, that the General Assembly shall not pass any law abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, nor of the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. And whereas Article 1, Section 16 of the Constitution of Virginia reads, no man shall be enforced, restrained, molested, or burdened in his body or goods, nor shall otherwise suffer on account of his religious opinions or belief, but all men shall be free to profess and by argument to maintain their opinions in matter of religion, and the same shall in no wise diminish, enlarge, or affect their civil capacities. And whereas the Board of Supervisors of Lancaster County is concerned about the passage of any bill, executive order, or mandate containing provisions that would infringe the rights of the people of Lancaster County, or that would unconstitutionally mandate medical treatments or procedures through force or coercion on the physical body of a person in violation of his or her religious beliefs, or that would lead to reprisals that negatively affect his or her civil capacities, should he or she refuse such medical treatments or procedures. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Lancaster County fully affirms and will uphold to the full extent of the powers vested in it, the rights ensured and protected by the constitutions of the United States and Virginia, including the following enumerated rights of the people, and that their civil capacities, the civil capacities of the people, shall in no wise be diminished, enlarged, or affected as a result of the free exercise of these rights. Number 1, free exercise of religion, including the right to gather for religious services or worship, and a right of a person to decline medical treatments or procedures on religious grounds. May I finish?
Yes.
We're near the end. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Number 2, freedom of speech in the press, including the right to express viewpoints such as opposition to any bill, executive order, or mandate that would unconstitutionally restrict the rights of the people of Lancaster County. Number 3, peaceably assemble without any unconstitutional limits on such gatherings. Number 4, the right of the people to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Be it further resolved that the board urges the Virginia General Assembly, the United States Congress, and other agencies of state and federal government to vigilantly preserve and protect those rights by rejecting any provision, law, or regulation that may infringe, have a tendency to infringe, or place any additional burdens on the First Amendment rights of United States citizens. Be it further resolved that the board directs its staff to forward a copy of this resolution to the county's elected representatives in the Virginia General Assembly and the United States Congress, and to the governor of Virginia. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Costello?
Charlie Costello, District 2. I wasn't going to address this. But I think what was just read needs to be more aired about what the reason is for this and what they believe that to be. And I think speaking to one of the proponents, it has to do with the mandate about getting shots, vaccinations. And that needs to be aired fully before anybody passes a resolution. The people of your county should get a chance to speak and look at it and not just have it come up here and get passed. The other thing is, I was going to mention about the comprehensive plan that you're going to look at tonight. Ms. Carper did a wonderful job, and I echo what you said. I did it before. I think it's very important we do it now. And also, think about suspending the ordinance regarding solar before we get taken over with more and more of these solar facilities. Remembering Jack Russell's point, when we had cell phone towers going up all over the place, that you have to be very careful what you're doing and how much you take in to go across the whole thing. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Your time back.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that want to speak? Okay. All right. Just state your name, your district. Yes.
Good evening.
How you doing?
I don't know my district, and that's bad to say, but my name is Donna Harcum, and I live on Mr. Palin's Road.
District 2. Okay.
District 2, thank you. My concern was piggybacking off of Pastor Turner in reference to the speed by the church. There's been several occasions that we've almost been hit, or people are speeding by and you can't turn in. Also, and this may not be, but even on Route 600, the people that can't get on Route 3, they're coming down Route 600 now, like it's Route 3. And there's been a couple of times I've almost gotten hit because I come out of my driveway and they come down to either miss the traffic on 3 or whatever the case may be. And Route 600 needs attention as well as Route 3, but in front of Beulah, if they had blinking signs to say oncoming traffic or something to alert the people when they come through to respect that time, then that would be a big help to us. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, you have VDOT sitting here, and they're listening to you. All right, okay. Okay, anyone else from the audience here wants to speak? Anyone online? Okay, all right, so at this particular time then, the public input session is closed. We're moving on. Old business?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, at our last meeting 3 weeks ago, 2 of our members wanted more time to look into the possibility of having a fence-in ordinance versus what we have now as fence-out. I hope very, very sincerely that 3 weeks has been enough time to look into this, because I would like to move that we adopt a fence-in ordinance for Lancaster County.
Okay, you've heard the motion. Are there any comments, questions, or whatever before we vote? All right. The motion was that we have a fenced-in county.
That's correct.
All right, all those in favor of that say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay?
Nay.
All right, motion fails. Any other old business? Okay, Virginia Department of Transportation.
Good evening. We have been busy in the 3 weeks since we saw you last. The mowing is underway. The litter pickup is almost complete. Mowing and litter should be done by the end of the week or maybe end of next week. The ferry is back in service. Happy to report. It looks great. If you happen to go down there and take a ride, it looks good. We were able to get the pylon replaced. It was damaged just before we pulled it out. And we removed sand from the ferry landing from that high tide event in October. We've cleaned up, I say we, Mike and his crew have cleaned up all their snow equipment, and we've inspected that and are ready to go for whatever the season brings. And the asphalt on 200 was patched where he replaced the pipe. Planned work, the Crawford's Corner pipe, that pipe replacement is underway. I'm planning to clean some pipes with a vacuum truck and cutting brush countywide and responding to work orders. The pavement replacement from the pavement schedule on Route 3 is complete. Oliver Lane, we worked on that. Looks like it's going to be after Thanksgiving before we finish the surface treatment. We'll get a warm day after Thanksgiving and we'll get that hard surfaced. Smart scale projects, the two that we have, one is the turn improvement at the intersection in Kilmarnock on Route 3 and 688, and the other is the turn lane improvement on 605 and Route 3. And I'm happy to report that both of those, the funding was advanced from the original schedule, so design will start in December on both of those. The add date for the Kilmarnock turn lane is currently fall of 24, and the add date for the intersection improvement on Route 3 that was just awarded funding last year is 25. I do expect, because of the scope of those projects, that as design takes place, that those schedules will move in, those dates will move in, because each phase will move fairly quickly because they're fairly small projects. But until we get through scoping, we won't set those final schedules. Also, we were also able to advance the funding on the bridge at Oyster Creek down towards Windmill Point. So that design starts in December as well. That add date is still 2025. Just in reference to Reverend Turner's comments, I was able to meet with him, and we did a cursory review of the entrances there and the speed. I did talk with the district traffic engineer, and his team is going to come out and do a more formal review of that intersection in regards to the speed and the speed limit. There may be an opportunity. They have two entrances, to sign one as incoming and one as an exit to maximize the entrance that has the most sight distance for them as they pull out. But we're still working on that, and I would expect probably in the next month or so I'll get a written report with any recommendations, and I'll forward that to Mr. Gill as soon as I get it. And that's all I had, so if you all have anything else for me.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman? Yes, go ahead.
yes.
All right. During our discussion last month for the Waller Solar Project, we talked about possible road repair if that was necessary during the construction phase of the project. And you recommended that the county require a bond for road improvements during the construction phase to make sure the contractor carries through with submitting a permit from VDOT. And you could help with that, but you would need to know the haul routes to be able to come up with some figures for the board. So my question is for you and for Mr. Gill, or whoever is appropriate, that it would seem to me for every solar project that we might approve, that this is a requirement that we know what you need to have so that we can do the bond that you're recommending to us. So I don't know how that starts, but if you can give some direction about specifically what you would want, then we could require that of every solar project. And then I suppose, I don't know how the bond thing works. You're the finance people, but I assume does it cost us money to have that happen?
No.
Doesn't have to be budgeted, right? We just
No.
require it of them. Okay.
But we would need a final site plan first before we would know the haul routes. So we haven't gotten a final site plan
No,
as of yet.
okay,
so-
but I'm just really talking about the process.
Yeah.
And we don't want to overlook that.
I mean, can you add anything else, David?
Yeah, I think it would just be a permit for us, and the county coordinates with the Saluda residency to review plans and issue permits for land development projects. So The county could just submit that plan to the Saluda residency as they normally do, and we'll review it and provide comments. And if a bond is, we can't require the bond, but you could require the
No,
bond.
you said we would have the bond.
So if you all tell us that, hey, we want to require a bond for road improvements, we can only require what's to be fixed right at the entrance, then we can help you with determining an appropriate amount.
Thank you.
Basically, the same process as a subdivision road.
Yes, sir.
I've been out of the county for 2 weeks, came back in on Monday. But when I came into the county, I couldn't help but notice all the good work that's been done on the final mowing for the year, the ditch cleaning, and litter pickup. Just want you to know it was noticed, it was appreciated, and I thank you.
Thank you, sir.
A ditto from here as well, in District 2.
Thank you.
And ditto from District 3, and to follow up on that, as I always do every month, I'd like to formally move forward the request that we were working on to do that cleanup in the winter, sometime in the February, March, before the grass actually starts growing and when things start to get bad again after this pickup.
Yeah, if you maybe just let Don know when you're ready for us to do it. I've talked with the district staff, and I think we were able to hit the easy button. I'm just gonna pay for it, and then you all can reimburse me. So we don't have to move any money in advance or have any agreements or all that sort of stuff.
That's easy.
Excellent. Thank you.
Just like these guys say, the grass cutters, they did a good job. And I tell you, the guys that came along with the weed eaters, I don't know when they picked them up, because I just saw them walking from Kilmarnock to Whitestone, so I don't know where the truck was at.
All right, well, thank you all.
All right, thank you, thank you. All right. Let's move to presentations. Number 1, we have a resolution here for the state championships for Lancaster High School golf team. We have a beautiful plaque here I shall read, and then we shall adopt it, and then we shall present it. All right.
You can let them all come up here.
come
Why
right
don't y'all
up, yeah.
stand over here?
No, it isn't. Right. Hey, do we have a camera? You take some? Okay. All right. Okay, good, all right. And so you want to get position there, because he's going to hand it to him as I read it and pronounce the name.
Oh, well, I'll get a picture once they're all
okay.
out. We can.
A resolution adopted by the Lancaster County Board of Supervisors recognizing the 2021 state champion Lancaster High School golf team. Whereas the 2021 Lancaster High School golf team was the Northern Neck District regular season champions and the regional champions, qualifying for the Virginia High School League Class 1 state championship tournament. And whereas the 2021 Lancaster High School golf team posted a low team score of 342, beating Gaelics 349, Castlewood 352, Giles 363 to claim the Virginia High School League Class 1 state championship. And whereas the 2021 Lancaster High School golf team was led by head coach Rob Pittman and consisted of the following student athletes. Please forgive me if I mispronounce your name. Claire Patel, all right? Ben Pittman. Leighton Dew. Eli Pittman. Not present, okay, not present, okay. Creston Saunders. Carter McGee. Pearson Long. Alex Posey. Not present, okay. Colin Payne, manager. All right. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Lancaster County hereby recognizes the exemplary dedication and determination of and expresses its admiration to the 2021 Lancaster High School golf team for the outstanding accomplishments attained this season culminating as the Virginia High School League Class I state champions. And be it finally resolved that a copy of this resolution expressing the sense of the Board of Supervisors of Lancaster County on this matter be conveyed to the Lancaster County School Board, the Lancaster High School Athletic Director, and be spread upon the meeting minutes of said Board of Supervisors. Adopted this 18th day of November 2021. I move that we adopt this resolution. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Ayes have
Mr.
it.
Chairman, can we tell them that they can come forward if
Yeah.
you want to get pictures?
And I want to get in this picture.
Take all the pictures you want. This is a big deal. Not of me.
This is an honor.
Congratulations, guys.
Way to go, guys. Make sure Superintendent Russell gets you that nice bling to go on your finger.
Thanks, guys, very much for the recognition, and I know we're being recognized for a state championship, but you guys are recognizing a good group of kids right here that will make you proud. So, thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
That's the fun part of the job, right, Mr.
Yes,
Phelan?
it is, it is, yes. Okay, broadband presentation. Mr. Bean?
This back on? Cool. All right, so pretty quick, the VATI proposal we went in with, Atlantic Broadband, is moving ahead of schedule, nothing dramatic happening there. Actual construction to start the first quarter of 2022, so we're pretty good there. The APB, All Points Broadband Dominion / Northern Neck Electric project. We had a meeting with them not too long ago, last week. Went really well, actually, and a few surprises here and there. Instead of, Lancaster County was originally in phase 2 of the whole project. We've been combined into phase 1 with the rest of the counties. APB themselves and Northern Neck Electric have gone out for another VATI grant that's become available. They should hear something about that by December or January. If they are awarded that grant, where we were supposed to have our project finished by the end of the fourth quarter of 2023, that will be escalated a year, so it'll be finished by the fourth quarter of 2022. If everything pans out right, the whole county should be covered by the end of the quarter of 2022. And my notes just disappeared. The CARES Act polls, right? No. The CARES Act wireless project. Last report we got from BTS is they're up to 102 customers in this local area, which I think is part of District 2 and part of District 3.
It spans 1, 2, and part of 4.
4. So that's slowly gaining momentum, where at the beginning it was super slow. They are slowly adding more and more customers every day. I ride by houses kind of seeing what's going on because I know what the equipment looks like, and I am starting to see more parabolic dishes on people's houses, which means they're probably getting that service from them. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Jason.
when we had this discussion before, when we were talking about the other project, is APB planning to take over that area at some point when they do this project, or is that gonna fall in a serviced area?
APB's out the gate is all unserved homes. According to the last survey that was done, those homes are technically under the unserviced homes.
Correct.
So they should be covering
Because
that.
hopefully the idea will be that, I don't think that's probably, the fiber that's being run will be much better, and we can turn it off and then start collecting our money again from Verizon.
Correct. The smart poles, they're having major issues with the CDMA cards, which are cell phones basically built into the smart poles. BTS has come up with an idea to actually connect those to a wireless setup like they currently give a customer, so that those poles will actually start working better for the citizens of Lancaster County.
Another question regarding that, can we get fiber run to those as part of the APB rollout?
Once fiber's out, it's probably a possibility. I'm not gonna say no to that, but once the fiber's in place.
But that would almost, right now, we can move those poles
Right.
around.
Right.
And the
That would
intention was
definitely
that
kill your
We
portability.
don't want them to be permanent,
Right.
Because
So,
if the one, say, in Kimana is not being utilized, we can move it somewhere else.
Right.
but logistically, it wouldn't be that big of a feat, I would say. Mr. Lee knows about pretty much what's involved, and, I mean, basically a modem and you're good to go. The last thing I think I have, sorry, gentlemen, I'm using my phone for notes. Well, that smart poles was the last thing. Me personally, I've been riding around seeing contractors put conduit in the dirt, and because I'm one of those people who talk to anybody, I'll pull over on the side of the road and be like, who y'all doing that for? And I've gotten multiple replies that it's being done for Dominion. So, and the conduit they're burying is your orange fiber conduit, so that's progress that we're actually physically seeing be done.
I've seen them down in Auckland too, so they're doing it everywhere.
Kevin, I just want to make one clarification, because I was at that meeting.
Yes.
And I don't know if you all talked after I left or not, but you said that if we, getting bumped up to phase one, that the completion would be by the fourth quarter of '22. I think you meant '23.
23. But if they get the
Yeah,
extra
yeah.
VATI
Yeah,
grant, then it'll be the fourth
You would just put it
quarter.
a year ahead of time,
Yeah.
because the original proposal was to be finished by the fourth quarter of '24.
4,
So it would bump us up 1 year.
yeah. So, any
I
questions?
will say that I was just at the VACO conference, and there was a lot of discussion around the advancement of this, and it's been
There-
heavily green-lighted from the state, so I
Right.
suspect that they'll get those grants.
And there's also a lot of money
There's a
just
lot of
being
money that's been
dumped
pumped
into
into it.
infrastructure right now, so it's actually almost a perfect storm of getting this done. I don't know any other way to put it. So, any questions, gentlemen?
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Y'all have a beautiful
Thank you for the
night.
job that you're doing.
Mr. Chairman, I move for the adoption of the consensus docket.
Okay, you've heard the motion. All in,
Okay, before the public hearings?
Yeah, you jumped over the public hearing.
Oh, I'm
thank you.
sorry. My bad. I was down on the agenda.
Right.
Thanks, Dr. Westbrook.
You determined it's not gonna be.
All right.
I saw a frown on Mr. Hubbard's face. when you did that.
Yes. No, you don't have to, no.
Yeah, if you,
Thank you.
Yeah.
and just
Glenn-
hit slideshow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Glenn, can you put my computer screen up on the? PC2.
Okay. Mr. Barnes?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Might take a minute to warm up, Brian.
Okay. All right, no problem. This public hearing, your only public hearing tonight, is a special exception request pursuant to the utility scale solar ordinance. This is for the property of heirs of BHP Hubbard Jr. LLC. This is called Whitestone Akron Solar LLC, this project's name, and it's presented to you by Dynamic Energy Solutions. It was advertised as a 5-megawatt, 40-acre solar facility lease with 35 acres of array on a 184-acre parcel zoned M1 industrial on the corner of Akron Road and Route 3 in District 3. This project, yes, sir, yeah. Just a quick, I've just got a few slides here just to go through a couple things to make sure I do not skip anything. This
this project came in August. It actually came in a little bit before your July 1st active deadline. It was processed in August by staff. The Planning Commission reviewed this project on September 16th, 2021. The Planning Commission review for these projects under 5 megawatts, as you know, the Waller Solar project last month did not go to the Planning Commission because it was over 5 megawatts and it utilized a siting agreement directly with the Board of Supervisors. Projects 5 megawatts and below must still go to a 2232 review with the Planning Commission body of the municipality. When you go to the Planning Commission for that project, for a project consideration like that, as I presented to you, I gave you the Planning Commission minutes and the entire Planning Commission packet. They're looking for 3 things according to the code: the location, the character, and the extent of the project. They want to look at the location of the project, make sure that it's consistent with the comprehensive plan, the character of the project, it fits with the ordinances of the county and the comprehensive plan, and that the extent of the project is reasonable or within what is mapped on the comprehensive plan or described or what have you. The Planning Commission has heard 2 projects for utility scale solar since your 2018 consideration of the same property using a 2232 review method. Where we don't have exact language in the comprehensive plan at this time that describes utility scale solar explicitly, they did the best they could with what they have. This project being positioned on M1 land makes that consideration pretty easy because it's industrially zoned. Even though our industrial zoning is rather light compared to what other counties have as permitted uses in industrial use, it's still an easier ask when somebody comes forward with a project like this to say, okay, well, it's positioned on M1 land. That's a lesser use than what else could be positioned there by right. So you have a memo from me of November 10th for the board. You did have a revision that came in November 12th that was after my memo, so the next slide, please. I've got the next 2 slides. I'll show you that revision real quick and then a side-by-side so that we can kind of put that in context for your discussion and your deliberations with the applicants. This was the original plan view that's in your memo and in your packet submittal. Next slide, please. This newer revision that just came in shows a wetland area that is over to the right-hand side to the east that impacted the solar arrays. They needed to move them, so they moved that area to the north. Next slide, Don, shows a side-by-side. These pictures are a little bit smaller, but I think on your screens in front of you, you can probably see it pretty well. You've got an area to the north and to the west of the array that previously it was in the lease area and was advertised as lease area, but was not depicted to be covered by arrays previously. It now is. The next 2 pictures I have are aerial photos that'll show you, everybody's asking where is the existing Rappahannock Solar with relation to that. If you can see the little old farm road kind of line in especially your picture on your right, the solar arrays are now there. Next picture, please. Nope, I'm sorry, go one more. One more, I thought. Okay, here it is. This is the array as of now. Thanks to Chief Smith, he took these photos earlier this week with the drone, with the emergency services drone. You can see the area that's almost underneath the drone is the area that is under consideration. Your revised area also includes that corner that is immediately beside the arrays and kind of behind, still offset from the road quite a bit by several hundred feet, but it does move in that direction. If you don't mind, Don, could you go back 2 more slides? Yep. The revision also includes a little bit of a tightening of the buffer spec because previously, as you know in our ordinance, if there's a natural buffer on the site already, you are allowed to use that natural buffer to buffer your project. Whereas they're moving in that northwesterly direction to an area that puts it a little bit closer to the road, they will be required to actually plant a buffer across the front. That would be part of your consideration for conditioning tonight, or any other conditions that you place on the project to think about. Next slide, Don. This is for a correction of a typo I had in your memo. I put a GIS map of the various zoning areas around this parcel in your memo. I had a typo. I actually had highlighted the parcel immediately under that kind of triangular salt box shaped parcel. That was incorrect. So this is, I gave you also a correction tonight. This is just a highlight to show you the parcel we're talking about, the M1 zoning. There's various other zonings all around it, A2, R1, and town zoning. That is a little bit ambiguous because, as you can see, town zoning is mapped into the unincorporated parts of the county. That mapping predates most of the staff here. I'm not sure why that's like that, but I've discussed that with town staff, and we're working on that. Were any projects to ever be positioned in that gray area, but in the county, we'll work out a protocol to establish what the proper zoning procedure will be on that. Luckily, we don't have to worry about that tonight. We're just talking about the parcel in green. Next picture, please. Yep, there's another drone shot that just positions you a little bit facing Route 3. You can see in the background, you can see the white steeple of the Whitestone Methodist Church there, and Akron Road is to your right. Rappahannock Solar is operating. I noticed today the arrays are tilting. They're following the sun. They're doing what they're supposed to do. We've walked the site several times lately. The stabilization's there. The buffer has not yet been planted. There's a few other things they've yet to finish. So this project would actually be a separate project from this project, but the same property and the same basic consideration. If I have any questions I can answer for you guys on, yes, sir.
With this new location, how many feet would you say that's from the wetlands now?
That's that is out of the 100-foot buffer. Your positioning to the north and to the west puts all of the arrays out of that 100-foot buffer zone.
Okay. So
On both sides.
Yeah. Can you go back to the drone picture?
Yep.
Yeah.
It would appear to me that that piece is basically in line with this back portion of the current array,
Yes, sir.
basically,
Yeah.
in that portion to the left there, right?
Yeah, and the front of your new should come in that area. Yeah. You can kind of see the inverters. You'll see a gray area in the center there. When you drive into the facility, I've gotten to take a couple of guys out there. The inverters are in the center, and I think the front of this project will position itself in line with those inverters.
Where would this be connecting into the not the transmission, but the distribution line? The same along Akron Road as well, or?
The applicant can answer that better than I can, but that is not going to tie into that line on Akron Road. It's going to go, if you're looking in this picture, it's going to go to the west, it's going to go to the left, and it's going to go straight towards the town of Whitestone and tie in the line that runs that way.
Okay.
This is a distribution project. We'll talk a little bit more about that later during your Chapter 6 consideration, but what we're discovering is that these lines are kilovolts. These little rural lines are all kilovoltage. So that line on Akron Road is like 11.2 or 12 kilovolts, if I'm not mistaken. So the people designing these projects would really like to position a project on every distribution line that serves that exact kilovoltage. The array is right there. The day that I was there most recently and they were testing it, they're reading output on that array, and he knows what's on the line, and it's all computer controlled. And he was getting 11.2 kilovolts from the solar arrays at full sun and getting ready to throw it onto the line because that's exactly what the line is rated for. So we'll talk more about that later, but that's something that this project's going to go, this project here is actually going to go the other way to a different line.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
in the discussion here, it states that this new facility would add 40 acres to the area covered by the activity on this site, but would be a separate standalone operation. Well, I understand the aspect of the separate standalone, but how much total impervious cover is on this site? I assume it's the same piece of property, right, 184?
Yes, sir. Yeah, yep.
But given that there's 40 acres, at least 40 acres, how much more is there, and what is the total?
That's a good question. I do not have that answer for you. Those kinds of questions have to be answered before an erosion sediment control permit can be issued, but
Well, that's fine. For my purposes, I can focus on the 40 acres. It's, that, by my math, that's an excess of the 16%, and so therefore, there's a stormwater management plan. Has there been any effort to produce a stormwater management plan to look at this?
No,
so
sir,
that
you do not have one at this
Tell whether or
time.
not this is going to be an issue for the wetlands?
Right, there's no stormwater plan. There was a stormwater plan that was developed for Rappahannock Solar. The array you see there, one would have to be developed for this project as well, and they get piecemealed
You're saying
along.
one would have to be done?
Yes, sir. The Department of Environmental Quality does require stormwater management plans for utility-scale solar facilities.
But that's not this. This isn't utility scale, is it?
This is yes, this is over 1 acre. It would require a
Well, the Bay
VSAP
Act
permit.
ordinance requires it regardless of what the
Correct.
impervious cover is related to.
That is correct, yes, sir. And you're right, we're always watching that 16% level. It would go by parcel. And as you know from having sat in this chair, as a planner, you want to know ahead of time what you're in for the whole plan. And when things kind of creep in and get piecemealed, like certain subdivisions we have where they're older and they're constantly adding new impervious cover here and there, it's always a game of catch-up to make sure that you're not going to create a stormwater runoff problem somewhere. It's a big challenge, yes,
The
sir.
other question I have is that these things are coming down the pike hot and heavy, these solar projects, and albeit that this one's a relatively small one compared to the one that was approved last month and the ones that we know are coming down. But we were told that at some point, the distribution lines could not handle any more of these solar facilities coming in. Has that changed? Is that still valid? Where are we on that, Brian?
Yes, sir. And you're right, that anybody looking through the minutes of the Planning Commission deliberations during the development of the solar ordinance will see that over and over again, it was repeated that you have so much line on this so much capacity on the transmission line, you'll have 1,400 acres, that'll be Waller Solar, and then it's done. I think, I'm not going to say that anybody was not telling the truth. What I will say is that the truth about the transmission line was true based on the transmission line. Whether the omission regarding distribution lines was intentional or not is up to the interpretation of the individual. I think as we've gotten to understand this better lately, we found that the transmission line can be completely full. You know, 130 kilovolt, 150 kilovolt line can be completely full on the transmission side. But as you get to the substation, from the substation out to the end user, you can have more capacity added by, some people call these community solar projects or distribution projects. They go by different terms, and Dominion has different programs for different projects. We've all lumped them in as being all utility scale because it's, for land use purposes, that's what it is. But for the energy business, they see different things there. And for sure, the possibilities with distribution lines are much higher. And I will tell you more about, if you want me to tell you about that now, I will. But I'll just repeat it when you talk about Chapter 6. The basic take-home point in that, Mr. Larson, is that you have 3 substations in the county, 1, 2, 3. We, Don Gill and Mr. Palin and I have been told recently by an industry expert that there could be between 5 and 10 distribution projects per substation. So you could have as many as 30 distribution projects that come to you, including the one tonight.
Thank you.
And gentlemen, before we get there, I want to say this. When we get to chapter 6, there's some things that I would like to discuss with you.
I'm sorry?
I say, when we get to chapter 6, there's some things I'd like to discuss with this board. And we'll talk about it at that time, okay?
Okay.
All right. But is there any other questions or statement before I open up the floor to the public?
I'd
To the
like to
public?
say something. I think you want to talk about piecemeal, and to Mr. Larson's point, I believe we have an obligation to this county to decide how much of this we're going to allow. Now, if there's different variations from transmission lines to distribution lines, maybe we got to get down into the weeds about that. But everybody that's going to have one of these is going to point to every other one that we've already approved and say, well, you did that, let's do this. And before you know it, we've got too many, in my opinion. So I don't know how we do that. I don't know if.
That's what I want to talk about.
Oh, good.
All right.
I'm concerned, and I bet you not, I'm sure you cannot answer this, and maybe Mr. Hubbard can answer this, but how many solar panels are here already on what we already approved and we're looking at a picture of? Does anybody know? How many solar panels will be involved with the next project? Because, and I'll just tell you why, and then I'll be quiet. I tried to bring it up before. I wasn't successful. I'm very concerned about what's going to happen at the end of life of each of these solar panels and what's going to happen to them and where they're going to end up. And so we just approved last month 1,400 acres of solar panels. This is minuscule compared to that, but yet it all is going to add up. Thank you.
Dr. Westbrook, your comments are certainly well received.
You need to get to the microphone, please, because people online can't hear you.
Mr. Pennant, I'd suggest before Mr. Hubbard speaks, you go ahead and open the public
Yeah,
hearing and let him speak
I think that
during
would
that.
be best. All right, thanks. And then you can come afterwards.
Very good.
All right, yeah, because there's some other things that'll probably come up that you probably need to address.
I think we can go ahead and open the public hearing.
Yeah, all right. So at this time, sir?
Just officially open it.
Yeah.
Okay, while you're here. All right, we're now opening up the public hearing, okay, and again, we have 3 minutes to speak. I will hold up this sign at the end when you have 1 minute left.
We limit the public hearing?
Yes,
Presentation?
yeah, not the presentation, but I'm talking to everybody.
Well, and I'll be just very brief on this
Okay.
point. And Dr. Westbrook, in this response to your concerns and comments, which are certainly well-founded, I can't speak to how many panels are there right now on the current project, but this is the perfect opportunity for me to introduce Mr. Derek Sheehan, who has been submitting materials and been in communication with Mr. Barnes about this upcoming project. He can probably give you more information on what's anticipated there. So, thank you.
All right, sir. Yes.
All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Derek Sheehan. I work for Dynamic Energy, and I could certainly address some of the questions that were proposed and some of the details of the project as well. You know, I guess I do want to start by saying I understand, you know, last month a very, very large project was approved or, you know, was heard in this room. Certainly want to make the distinction between this one and that one. You know, again, I think it's pretty well understood, but we're talking about a, you know, distribution level shared solar project. And I can go into the details of the shared solar program and, you know, why we have proposed this project here and what that means for the Commonwealth of Virginia and I think in greater detail as well, the Lancaster County. But I guess I want to thank you, Mr. Barnes, for that introduction. Definitely a thorough overview of the project. I guess I could start by, you know, I could go into a little more detail, or if you'd like, I could kind of address some of the questions that you had, Mr. Westbrook. But I think there were two comments. One about the distribution line. So to Mr. Barnes' point, you know, it sounds like there are about 3 substations which could, you know, potentially have or have capacity to support between 5 and 10 distribution level solar projects. I do want to make a note here that this program in Virginia, this shared solar program, currently the program only allows for about 30 of these projects to be built in the entire state. And, you know, this approval process doesn't necessarily mean that they will ultimately get constructed. The second, you know, big hurdle is that these projects do have to be awarded capacity under the program, and it's a first come, first served basis. The program actually has already opened up as of October 1st, so you know, this is one of the steps. In order to submit, you have to have all your discretionary permits as well as interconnection agreement with Dominion Energy. So, you know, this is one of the steps that we're obviously pushing along on the path to getting this project complete. So I think, you know, just for all of your information as well, and also the public who I think are, you know, the residents of the county who are potentially concerned that, hey, we're going to be flooded with solar. You know, I do just want to highlight that point that right now there are 30 of these projects will be approved in the entire Commonwealth, and with the potential for another 20 if the low-income subscriber requirements are met. Doesn't mean that they won't expand the program in future years, but for right now, you know, that's what we're working with. So I did want to address that. And then one other point here was about the impervious cover. I believe that project, I heard from Mr. Hubbard that it's about 15 acres. So our additional 35 acres under panel, you know, would get the total parcel under panel to about 50 acres. You know, I think whether you view panels as pervious or impervious, you know, they certainly do provide ground cover. The way that we design these projects, we don't, you know, remove the topsoil. It's a very flat parcel, very minimal, if any grading will be required. The racking system that we use, basically they're giant screws that just auger right into the ground, which provides for if there's any rock in the way, you know, we don't have to dig it out. The rocks just kind of get pushed out of the way by the screws, which is nice. And then this will also be a tracking system as well. So similar to the array that is currently operating on the parcel, you know, in the morning, the panels will be tilting east, and then they'll follow the sun as the sun rises. They'll probably reach a maximum height of about 13 to 15 feet at the height of the day, and then follow the sun west. And then they reset each, you know, every day to follow the sun again. These, you know, I think because the tracking system, I think inherently provides for kind of distribution of rainwater, as opposed to with a fixed tilt system, you know, if those panels are just sitting in one direction, right, that water is going to run off the panels and kind of hit the same spot on the ground during every rain event. But with the tracking system, you know, we will have that ability for the water to be kind of distributed and not just falling in the same spot, which minimizes erosion, that sort of thing.
So may I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
I assume if it's raining, it's going to be overcast. So these panels are still producing electricity depending on the level of overcastness?
Yeah, they will still produce electricity. I mean, we certainly lose
So it's still going to
production.
be tracking even if it's overcast?
Yeah, they will still be tracking. Really, it's, you know, nighttime will kind of cause that reset. But yeah, they will still produce. It's just, you know, we will see reduced production levels. So I guess, would it be helpful to talk a little bit about the shared solar program? If that's helpful? All right, sure. So yeah, the shared solar program, it's part of the Virginia Clean Economies Act, which is the goal is to get Virginia 100% renewable by 2050. Certainly a lofty goal. You know, solar is one of those, is one, you know, arrow in the quiver, if you will. But specifically, the shared solar program, we're starting to see a lot of states around the country, in particular in the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast, adopt these shared solar programs or community solar programs. And essentially what the reason why they're here is typically only 1 in 5 homes meet the requirements to install solar panels on the roof. You know, it could be that your roof is shaded or it's not facing the right direction, or, you know, it could be cost prohibitive. You know, to get solar can be pretty expensive. You could have an HOA or something that doesn't allow for it. So what the shared solar program does is, instead of putting panels directly on people's homes, we build, you know, one larger project out in the field, and those panels are folks can subscribe to the solar project. It's free to enroll. It is, you know, limited first come, first serve, but folks can essentially subscribe to have their, you know, 20 panels or 50 panels or however many they need based on their electricity usage. The equivalent production of their panels gets applied to their bill each month as a credit. So each month that system will generate electricity, you know, it feeds the power grid, and then the utility just tracks the production, and then your credit, you know, your percentage of the production of that solar farm gets applied to your bill just as a new line item. So if your bill, you know, typically is $100, for example, you would get on average $100 worth of credit each month, and then you know, typically it's a 5 to 10% discount. You know, it is a free program to enroll, so you don't quite see the savings that you might if you were to purchase a system and put it on your roof, the long-term savings, you know. But so yeah, that's the purpose of the program, is just to expand access to the benefits of solar to, you know, folks who might not ordinarily be able to benefit from solar.
Any additional questions?
Yep.
Yeah.
You buy these panels from China?
I mean, we buy them wherever we can get them.
You're going to buy them from China, the cheapest.
I will say China is the largest manufacturer of solar panels in the world.
And you know they've used slave labor to make these.
You know,
You don't officially know it, but you know it.
Well, Brad, I can't speak to specifically the companies.
I know, because you don't want to, but they do use slave labor.
Sure, I mean, there's a lot of, you know, products and services that we all.
And they're cheap, relatively cheap panels, so they don't recycle. They're not economically viable to recycle. But there are companies that make panels that have a recycling program. Do you know about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, we had submitted a decommissioning plan along with our submission for the special use application.
Yeah, but most of that doesn't have, you know, here's my heartburn, and
Sure.
it's really with me.
Yeah.
Because I alerted the board by email my concerns before we ever did the Waller thing.
Sure.
But I failed to tell the public. Unfortunately, I thought I had time in the presentation of the way things were. I wanted to address the conditions that we put on that project so that we would have that for any solar project that happened in the county. But that's not what happened, and I lost my opportunity to say it. I would want that any solar project in the county, those panels are purchased from a manufacturer that has a recycling program, and they're bound to do that recycling program, the owner of the project. I understand that might cost some more money, but at the same time, it's the right thing to do. Because my concern is 20, 30, 40 years from now, what's going to happen to these panels? And I know what the Waller Solar Project said. They're going to store them on site, and then they're going to dispose of them according to the law. Well, so theoretically, the federal government has set some standards, so if the solar panel's a tier 1 panel, you can just put it in a landfill. You can just put it in a dumpster. That's why I asked how many panels we're talking about for this, and I realize this is very small in comparison. Sure. I didn't ask that for the other because I lost my opportunity.
Yeah.
But I just want to go on record for the few people that are here, and maybe someone's online. that I'm very concerned about what's going to happen to this county down the road. And I don't think we can backtrack necessarily. I'd like to backtrack about the conditions so that we can set a standard for any solar project, even people who want to put it on their roof. That they purchase the panels from a company, as I said, that has a recycling program, that they're under contract to send those to the recycling program, that the manufacturer puts a unique number on every panel so we can track which project that panel came from. Those are concerns of mine that I did not mention. I'm sorry for taking so much time. But it's worthy to discuss. It's worthy to get ahead of this. So the number of solar projects, whether it's distribution lines or transmission lines, and the fate of these panels is very important, I think, for us to really discuss and make some firm decisions about. And I agree with the thing about the slope of the soil, because we know what happened in Louisa County. I don't know if you do, but, well, they did everything according to DEQ standards and their own standards. And then we had that torrential rainfall, and it all went to crap because the ground cover they had was not sufficient for the rainfall at that stage in the project. They planted grass, as I understand it, and the hillside just was mud, and they had a containment pond that was way too small for that amount of rainfall. Now, I know you can't go to the infinite degree, but these are things that we owe everybody that lives here or is going to live here, that we do it right at the beginning.
Sure.
And we've already behind the power curve because we just approved 1,400 acres. Yeah. And we took their word for everything.
Well, I certainly agree with you that, you know, the point here, I mean, you know, we're trying to develop clean energy projects, right? And I don't think the point here is to, you know, add or cause, you know, we want to reduce as much pollution as possible. I think in our decommissioning plan, we do have that bond placed for the removal and, you know, recycling of those panels. I will say, though, that, you know, solar on, you know, generally, I mean, there are probably very few projects that have actually kind of made it to the end of their life cycle yet, you know, I mean.
Yeah, it hasn't been around for 40 years.
But no, I certainly, you know, I certainly appreciate your sentiment, your point there. In terms of, or with respect to that other project, it sounds like it may have been on a pretty, you know, the slope may have been pretty steep.
Well, they denuded a lot of forest land. I don't think the whole 14 acres was trees before, but they took a lot of that and they did it all at one time. And so they got all this bare dirt that they're trying to plant grass and do what they can. And again, this was a horrific torrential downpour that lasted for, I don't know, a long time, long enough.
Yeah.
So anyhow, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I just want to say.
I appreciate it and I understand. I mean, I certainly think if, you know, we were looking at a you know, a sloped parcel here that would, you know, be a little more relevant. I think we have developed projects on sloped parcels before in different states, and, you know, certainly you want to take as much precaution as possible. It sounds like maybe the timing might have been unfortunate there, but regardless, no, I just agree. I think, you know, the zoning ordinance being there for solar is a good guideline to help us, you know, develop the best possible project. I mean, our point, or what we're trying to do here is not come in and, you know, trample on anybody in any sort of way. And I think to speak to the way that we're approaching this project, you know, we did amend our site plan to you know, mitigate as much as possible any impact on the wetlands. You know, we did have the access road initially going through, and Mr. Hubbard had pointed out to me when we met on site that there was an old farm road that kind of came kind of right through, if you look at the bottom, the southwestern corner of that kind of upper array on the newer site plan. there's an old farm road that came through there, but, you know, we saw that soon that there was, you know, pretty wet going through there in our wetlands. So in order to avoid those wetlands, we, you know, moved the access road. We have 2 proposed access roads there. You know, we're not certain yet which one would be the best, but that was the, in that plan, one of those access roads will ultimately be, but we just haven't quite decided yet. Again, it comes down to wetland disturbance, but we
Say
wanna
that
avoid
the one that was currently developed was, like you said, they didn't really disturb the land hardly at all.
Yeah.
There were several 8 to 10 inch rains during that time. I live right down the road from this, and frequently you'd have water gushing down in the normal ditch that would be next to the road, but you never saw like sediment or something washing off this site into that water during that time either. So I think this is kind of a big difference from where, like, what happened up there where they did clear-cut trees, which you
Right.
you do have to really think about erosion when you're doing that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, they followed all the guidelines. They
Yeah.
were exact on everything that was required of them. It was this weather phenomenon.
No doubt. And to follow up on that, at the conference, I talked to some of the Dominion folks and brought up some of the concerns that were on that site too. And they said, we're all learning a little bit as we go through this because it's all brand new. And some of these things, like the thing that happened in Essex, they learned lessons there. The things happen in Louisa, they've learned lessons from there and they've adapted what they do or how much land they're going to now, when they do something like that, it maybe they were going to do this many acres, they've now reduced that down to a maximum of, say, 600 acres on 1,000, where they were going to do 800, they've now gone to 600 in these cases. So the industry is learning, I think, as we go through this. I think the same thing is the county is going to have to adapt as we see how things change over time and do the best we can now, but also realize that in the future, we don't know all the answers and we may have to adapt to the new reality as they come before us then.
But we don't have to take everything that comes before us and approve it. We can specify ahead of time how much we're willing to allow.
And I totally agree to that, and I think that will be the discussion as we move into the next phase tonight when we talk about the finalizing the comprehensive plan. My only questions to the applicant really is like the buffers that you are planning to put in here. I know there were some approved before. I see, Mr. Hubbard, you've kind of let the grass grow up in front of the other ones. There's an indication you're going to plant a nursery type of buffer there, or you're just going to allow that grass and natural buffer to grow up? Because that's actually would be more preferred to have just let the land go fallow and let the trees that would naturally grow and the grass to just grow up and form a natural buffer, because that's going to be more effective than actual landscaping. So I think, in my opinion, wherever we can allow that type of thing to occur, and that's more amenable to y'all than planting stuff, I think that would be a better choice to allow, say, a 50 or 75 natural foot buffer to just grow up and not plant nursery plants, because those tend to not be as effective, take a lot longer to grow, and would take years more longer to really fill in, whereas if you just let the natural buffer grow within 3 years, that's going to be 10 or 15 foot high, and you're not going to see through it at all.
Okay.
So, is that something y'all could speak to about what y'all would prefer there, or is that something that we could put in as a condition that you put a natural buffer?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that we would be opposed to a natural buffer. I think the one that we did propose was, we tried to be as much in accordance with the ordinance and how it was laid out there. We work with the Timmons Group, which you may be familiar with. I think they were involved in the Waller project as well, but they're
Mr. Barnes, what is the current road setback that we, in our ordinance? Is it 75 feet?
Yeah, on that rural road, and they're far enough off of Route 3 that they don't get triggered by, we have a different setback for 3.
3 of the highway corridor, but on rural roads, it was 75 or up to the board and final.
Yeah,
So that 75, that's from the road to the fence line, correct?
yeah.
So that, it could be part of the conditions that we say that those 75-foot buffers along the road would have to be allowed to grow up into a natural grown buffer.
Yeah, I think that's one of the more innovative parts of our ordinance, is that you do have those flexible options to utilize natural buffer. And you're right,
I mean, this was a question years ago on that Akron substation when Dominion came before us and got that approval. They had all this big plan to build a bunch of natural landscape buffers, but within a couple years while they were building it, practically the land around it grew up, and now you don't even know that substation is there. The trees are
Correct.
so thick around it.
Yeah.
And they came back to us and pretty much got that condition waived away, was what I thought, because they'd allowed the natural buffer to take over that land.
Right, yeah, totally. You cannot see that substation at all, and that's only been about 5 years, so.
And that substation is deeper than 75 feet.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
deep, yeah.
But even 75 foot of
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
pines and growth around here would certainly more than,
All right, let me do this, because we're doing a lot of discussion here. Let's hear from the public, and then after we close the public hearing, we can come back to this discussion. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you,
very much.
Supervisor.
Is there anyone from the public who would like to make a comment on this proposed project? Okay, if not, yes, sir.
Just briefly. 3 years ago, November 15th, we passed on the Hollow project, which is the 2 megawatt for the Hubbards. Now we're here. If I'm correct, we're going to be going off back and behind the current item field and then down on the side of it. Is that correct? Yes. Brian, that's what I think we're
right-
doing.
Yeah, right there.
It was
and
originally
immediately behind.
said it'd be 1,000 feet back, but now it's gonna be a good deal closer. I'm concerned about all of these coming in. And because on distribution line, community, this electricity, there may be some subscribers, but very few. We're gonna be overtaken. You said there are 3 substations. I can think of Whitestone, you say Akron, you got the Ring Farm substation, you've got Kilmarnock substation, you're gonna have one in Waller, and you're gonna have the Murray Point will have a substation. There's 5 there. I don't know, up at River Road, isn't there a substation up there?
Northern Neck
Chuck? Northern Neck Electric's got one up there. Don't forget Northern Electric too. We haven't seen anything down there. I think it's very dangerous where we're headed. We need clean energy, yes, but we don't need to be taking all of our farmlands and the rest of it, and all of our forests and turning it into panels. It's gonna be bad, my friends. It's getting bad. You need to do something. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, anyone online? Okay, all right, this public hearing is now closed. All right, gentlemen, y'all have any comments, questions, or whatever from the developer or the owners?
I said it.
Okay, all right.
I don't have any other. Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve this request with the proffer that the 75-foot setback buffer be set aside to allow for a natural growth to occur along that road frontage that's required in the ordinance.
Would that be in lieu of the planted buffer?
Yes.
That they have on the spec, okay.
Yes.
All right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
The motion's on the floor to approve, is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Unless you want to make a comment before we vote.
Yeah.
Sir, I would like to.
Discussion.
Okay.
There may be a place, or there probably is a place for solar generation in the county. In my mind, most of it should be on the top of roofs and residential properties. But as we've seen these projects come in other parts of the Commonwealth, and seen the problems with stormwater management, what has happened? Once it's done, it's done. The damage is done. Nobody can tell me up front that, well, that's not gonna happen. But once it's done, and other people are affected. There's no two ways about it. It troubles me greatly. The fact that there's no stormwater management with this. This has come forward, it seems that things are just coming forward and saying, approve it, and we'll sort everything out afterward. We don't even have any conditions. When you have a special exception, there should be some conditions that are put on it. I don't even see any here, and the things that were looked at, I won't even get into the comprehensive plan, because I've said that enough. I'll just focus on the stormwater management. I will focus on the way these things are coming before this board. Frankly, the way the planning commission is handling them, it looks to me much like a rubber stamp before they come to us. We were supposed to have another one December 9th. Because of the schedule that we have, that meeting is 20-some days from now. It's going to be heard by the planning commission next Monday, and then the expectation was turn it to the board, give it to them on the 9th. Well, that isn't going to happen, because first of all, they don't have the time to properly advertise it. But that might have been the only saving grace. We have got to stop and figure out what this county's going to look like if we just agree to every one of these projects that comes down the pike, whether it's one this size, it's one the size of the water project, or the one that we've been hearing about up here on Avis Trail. We have got to sit down, and as Dr. Westbrook has talked about, there are certain things that have to be sorted out before we keep doing this, or we're going to pay a dear price in my mind. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna address Mr. Lawson, one comment he made. The one that's coming before the planning commission on Monday, the 22nd, that was not gonna come to the board of supervisors on December the 9th.
That's fine, but
That
they
was,
wanted it to
it
come
didn't have
before
nothing to
the
do with the time and anything like that. We just said we're not gonna do it.
Well, the other thing that's happening is staff is getting constantly harassed by these developers.
Well, I
wanting to
understand
know,
that, yeah.
When is it happening? When is it happening? When is it
Yeah.
gonna go before the board? They're regular people,
Yeah.
normal human beings, trying to respond to these developers. But in my mind, we're not doing our job by backing up staff and telling them, just hold it up for a minute here. Let's talk about all of these things we need to have in here so that we don't have a horrible mess on our hands, well before 40 years.
Yeah, it won't be us. It'll be our children and grandchildren. I would just like to ask a question. Does anybody agree with me that it's morally wrong to allow solar panels that are made by slave labor to come into this county if we can say otherwise? If we can say that you must buy this from a manufacturer that does not use slave labor, that has a recycling program that you must participate in? Am I the only one here that thinks that way? Because we ought, in my opinion, ought to be putting that condition on every one of these projects.
I'll be brutally frank, Dr. Westbrook. I'm more concerned about the issues that directly impact this county. And simply because, not that I don't care about slave labor being used, but I don't know the facts about that.
But it's also the recycling thing, Jack. It's also the fact that
I don't dispute the
20,
recycling.
30, 40 years from now, all these panels are going to end up on the
I
side of the
agree with
road.
you, I agree with you on that, but I would not, I think we ought to focus. We've got enough problem focusing on what is going to impact this county.
I agree.
And,
I don't
and,
disagree
and you're
with
right,
you.
the disposal is going to affect this county, but whether or not it's made by slave labor, you asked for an opinion, I'm just giving you mine.
All right.
All right. Any additional comments before we vote? Okay, you heard the vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Okay, 3 for the motion, 2 against the motion. Motion passed. All right, so consensus docket.
I move for approval of the consensus docket.
You've heard the motion to approve the consensus docket. Any discussion before we vote? All in favor of the approval of the consensus docket say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. I think that was unanimous vote.
Yes, it was.
Okay. All right. Consideration docket. Salaries and invoices, I don't think we have those, right?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman. Due to the accelerated meeting schedule, the the usual detailed salaries and invoices was not completed until today. And given past experience, I knew that you all did not approve that tonight, so they will be approved in December. Now, likewise, you won't have December for approval at that December 9th meeting. You'll end up having December and January both at your January meeting.
Okay, all right. Let's see, the next thing that's before us is a request for pump and haul. Mr. Barnes?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request for a pump and haul septic disposal by Edward and Ashley Farley on a 28-acre parcel described as tax map 26-149A. This property is zoned R1, is located off West Point Road on Farley Lane in District 2. This is pretty standard. This is not a public hearing, but this does go to the board for your consideration for your vote. Previously, pump and hauls have been used infrequently by folks who are not able to get a septic system on their property. I gave you a memo and a submittal from the applicant requesting this and the agent. The agent is here, Mr. Dave Jones. They also provide a sketch showing where this septic tank would go. This is at the site, as you all are probably familiar with, the old Farley Oyster House. That site has been redeveloped and is in the process of continuing to be redeveloped. There was a privy here, a vault privy system, and they have done away with that. They would like to replace that with this system, and that would help the building that you see depicted there down by the water have a working, functioning bathroom. I think Mr. Jones could probably speak to the long-term plan on that, if this is just a stopgap measure for 5 to 10 years until they establish a better septic system up the hill. I don't know. But generally, these things have been approved. You would hold a bond on this, and if there was ever an issue, staff would be able to bring it back to you. It could be revoked, the bond pulled, and the system done away with. But with that, I'll answer any questions y'all might have of me.
Mr. Barnes, is this similar to like the residential homes that have this type
This
of
is not a
system?
residential home down on the water. This is a building that would be positioned in place of the old Oyster House. I don't know what the use of the building is. It is more of an accessory structure from what I understand.
All right.
I guess my question was, and I guess Mr. Jones
Yeah.
probably gonna have to answer
Yeah.
that. Because when I read it, I said, well, how long is this? Is it 90 days or is it 180 days? I mean, it's forever?
So, Mr. Lee, what was down there was the Oyster House.
Yeah.
And as Brian said, there was a
And I guess
old well
that was going
curve
into the creek, it looked like.
that, yeah, right, that went into the river. Yeah, and so, and the oysters were good up there at that time also. But, no, this building would be, and would be there for the pump and haul would be there with the building, I would guess forever, unless somebody decided to do something different. That building is just gonna be a fishing shack, is all it's gonna be. He wants to put something back, it would have to be elevated now, because it can't, it's not grandfathered for the elevation, but it's just gonna be a small building, little fishing shack. We've already built a large barn on top of the hill, and within the next 6 or 8 months, we'll be starting a new single-family house down there.
It's a man cave.
Pretty much,
Not
yes.
high volume use or nothing like that.
No, sir, no, sir. If he thought it was going to be a large volume use, he would just pump it all the way up the hill to the top side.
Okay. Any questions from anyone else? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
All right, I move that we approve this request for pump and haul.
Mr. Chairman, I must recuse myself from this vote because I've recently started work with one of Mr. Jones's companies.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, so, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All right, so that's four, and one recused. All right, motion passed. The next thing is certification of American Rescue Plan. That's Mr. Gill.
Mr. Chairman, the town of Kilmarnock qualifies for municipal utility relief funding under the new American Rescue Plan Act, very similar to the prior CARES Act in which they qualified for the same type of funding. This scenario is identical to that prior CARES Act. The county must be the fiscal agent for the town. In other words, the money comes to the county, it's passed through to the town. There's a certification form required that requires signatures from the town as well as the county. And in recent days, the county attorney, Jim Cornwell, who is online, and also the town of Kilmarnock town attorney, Nancy Ellen Keene, have developed a memorandum of understanding, again, similar to the prior CARES Act MOU that you signed or approved, and which protects the county if there was ever any payback required of these funds. This MOU makes that the responsibility of the town and not the county. Also, keeping track of the record keeping that goes along with this particular pot of ARPA money is also town responsibility as well. Again, very similar to the CARES Act that you approved last year. And if Mr. Cornwell would like to add anything, I would ask that he chime in now if he'd like to.
Only that we put the provision in the agreement that if the town of Kilmarnock was called upon to pay back the funds and for some reason declined to, the county would have the right to withdraw from the town Kilmarnock's funds that the county collects for the town, the amount of money needed to pay it back. Just like we did, we collect certain taxes for the town, and they would be subject to being clawed back if we had to do so.
All right. I move that we approve the certification of
Mr.
American.
Chairman, I have one question.
Let me put the motion on the floor, then I'm gonna open it up for a
Thank you.
statement. All right. I move that we approve the certification of American Rescue Plan Act funding for the town of Kilmarnock Municipal Utility Relief and authorize the county administrator to execute the attached certification. And the motion has been made. Any comments on this motion?
I'm reading the wording in the last sentence of paragraph 6 of the agreement here, where it states, "I understand that any funds spent in violation of federal guidance may be subject to repayment by Lancaster County." Now, I think I heard what Mr. Cornwell said, but that sounds to me like if Kilmarnock is not spending these funds in accordance with the guidelines for spending them, that we're on the hook for it.
Well, that's the certification form. What's not shown in this package, because the MOU had not been created at that time, the MOU between the county and the town actually does what Mr. Cornwell said. So it's not this certification form, it's the MOU that was sent out by email a couple days ago when it was finalized.
Okay, but this sentence still troubles me, and what does it add to the paragraph? It doesn't add anything in my book. It simply says this is what we think. I mean, okay, our MOU covers this, is what you're saying.
Yes.
But this right here is not consistent with that in my book, and I don't see any purpose that it serves, other than to confuse and other than to, create a problem down the road.
All I can say is this is a state document. It's the state certification form that's required. And that's one reason for the MOU, is to protect the county in the event that any repayment were required.
Okay, so in a court of law, does the MOU overrule this?
I'll defer to
Yes.
county.
Yes?
Yes, it would, but I would ask that the motion be amended to also authorize and approve the MOU.
Yes.
Right now, you only have the motion to approve the certification. We need the MOU approved also.
Okay, yeah, and that's coming
Still like
next.
to see that struck, because I don't think it serves any purpose, but if it's the MOU
Yes. Yeah, that's
takes
coming next.
precedence, then fine.
All right. So the motion
It
is on.
will.
Motion is on the floor. All those in favor of it said aye. Aye. All right, it's unanimous vote there. Now we move into the memorandum of understanding, all right?
Well, consideration item number 4 is separate from this. I don't have the MOU in front of you. You got that by
okay.
email,
So,
so.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the MOU that goes along with the certification.
Okay, you've
That's
heard
what
the
I'm looking
motion. All in favor say aye, or move to approve the MOU to go along with what we just, okay. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Unanimous vote, motion passed. Okay, next one is consideration of adopting a resolution for participation of the opioid settlement. Who's that? That's Mr. You?
Yes, I'll brief a little bit on this, and then Mr. Cornwell can chime in as well. The state is participating in an opioid settlement, has created an abatement fund, and they are requiring localities to pass 2 resolutions. One of the resolutions is to participate in the opioid settlement, and the second resolution is to participate in the opioid abatement fund and the settlement MOU. Based on the formula that is in the documents that you had in your package, Lancaster County stands to receive over $200,000 directly in these awards. Plus, there's the possibility of additional income further down the road. So for Lancaster County to participate in this, you need to pass these 2 resolutions. And again, I would ask Mr. Cornwell if he has anything to add. Now would be a good time.
Well, as the board is probably aware, the opioid problem has existed for some time, and there were numerous claims filed against manufacturers as well as distributors in an effort to cover the cost and expenses that particularly local governments have suffered because of the opioid addiction. There was a class settlement. There are several class settlements going on, and this was a class settlement that the Attorney Generals had agreed, and Attorney Generals across the United States, not just the Virginia Attorney General, have agreed to a portion of that litigation. And then the distribution of those funds was also agreed by the numerous attorneys representing local governments. So this is money coming to the Lancaster County because of the Attorney General's efforts to make the distributors and the manufacturers responsible for the damage that they've done. And again, there may be more funds coming from different sources, and there may be, in this settlement, the second part of the settlement is if we can produce evidence of direct damage, such as through EMS and so forth, we may be in line for additional funds. But this is the first minimum payout that the county would be entitled to.
Mr. Chairman, I'll just make a comment to this, that the original agreement that was going around was not so good to local government. Really going to get a piece of this, but the VACO lobby really pushed with their lawyers and with the county, with the constituency of the counties, to make sure that local government was considered in this, because we were the ones on the front lines really dealing with this, and that's the primary reason why the legislation and the final agreement is what it is today, and why we're getting the amount of money that we are. Very much how NACO and VACO lobbied on behalf at the federal government and got those ARPA funds directly to us instead of going through some convoluted process. So being a member of VACO and working actively with them is beneficial to local government. I just wanted to say how much they're working on our behalf all the time, even though we may not know it.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So, as I understand it, and I'm not the brightest bulb in the box, but we're spending taxpayer money to deal with an opioid crisis. Is that correct? And this is paying us back somewhat. It tries to offset the taxpayer money that we're using to combat this crisis, either through our EMS or whatever
Right.
it is.
Exactly.
So when we get this money, do we have to justify any of that? Do we have to
Not
say?
this basic, not the basic amount, no.
Okay.
The additional amount, you
Over and
probably have to
above.
put in justification for.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right. Any further questions or statements?
I'd move that we approve the resolutions.
Okay, both.
Yes.
Okay, you've heard the motion that we approve both resolutions. All right, all in favor of the approving both resolutions, say aye. Aye. Unanimous vote. Okay, motion carries. Let me get a little drink of water here, my lips are sticking. Okay. Now we're moving to the update of Chapter 6. And I'd like to make this statement. I've been thinking about this, and as far as Chapter 6 is concerned, and along with the statements that we've been seeing all along, when we first started with solar, we were thinking about a couple of projects, and that would be it. And we wouldn't be worried about the county because the line's full. And as I have found out, there's substations and all these other lines that's out here, and there's a whole lot, a lot of people lined up coming to us. And I'm agreeing with a lot of you, all of us, I think, on this board agree the same thing. We need to put our foot on the brake, stop, and we need to get together and come up with some things, some ideas, some plans on what we want to see happen here in this county as far as solar panels is concerned. So, my thinking is this, I'm throwing this out to you. My thinking is this, we can discuss chapter 6, but my thinking is let's postpone chapter 6. Let's have a meeting between the Board of Supervisors and have a meeting between the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission, and let us sit down and start hashing out and discussing where we should go, what we should be doing as far as the county is concerned and solar energy. That's my statement here. And I, yes.
Mr. Chairman, I kind of agree. We need to work on this language and comprehensive plan for this chapter as well as the next chapter. And I don't think we've come to any agreements on the exact language that's been struck and what should be in there. I think we need to work on that language. I'm the one that called for this to be tabled last month. I'm going to add to that again this month. I'm going to move now that we table this and that we ask the county administrator to organize a meeting in the first part of January with a joint meeting with the Planning Commission to sit down across the table as we've done in the past and try to finalize the language that we want to have in these two chapters, so we can kind of come to some agreements on the maximum amount that we want to allow the extent of solar to propagate across the county. So that's my motion.
That's a motion, and I'm in full agreement with that, yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I don't, not in disagreement with Mr. Bellis, but I would like to introduce some language that we can start discussion with into that solar ordinance, solar part of the comprehensive plan. And it would read similar to this, so we can have something to start from. Steep slopes and historical significant areas should be avoided. Projects shall not come within 800 feet of designated wetlands or tidal waters. So let's get that in there. When he sends it to us, we got something to start from that we can work on. If we don't like the language, or don't like the footing, but we got something that we can start out with. And I'd like to see something put in there dealing with that area.
Okay, all right, gentlemen.
And I would just remind everybody that what the conditions that this board approved 3-2 said that it automatically conforms with the comprehensive plan. I may not be saying that exactly right, but that's pretty doggone close. So by blessing that project, we said it fits our comprehensive plan. But I'm in complete agreement with what you're saying, and I think it's a great idea. We need to put the brakes on. We need to do this as best we can. We've already, I hope we haven't gone too far, but it's possible that we have. But yes, I'm in complete agreement.
Dr. Westbrook, as we do what we're talking about right here, the final site plan for the Waller Solar is still going to have to come back before the county, and it will be, if that language is in the comp plan, when that site plan comes back, it can be applied there.
But we had a chance to do the conditions, and we just took them at their word. We could have put our own conditions onto that document we had, but we did not. We took what they said they were going to do, and we said, okay, fine.
Okay, let's do it.
So,
Not at this time, sir, thank you. All right, yes, sir.
Well, I certainly like what's being proposed too, but what I would also hope is that we would direct staff to just simply say, we are not going to consider another one of these projects until we have ironed this stuff out. Can we agree on that, and we'll support staff too?
Staff is already doing that.
So that when they get these phone calls, they can say, you can call me all you want, but it isn't going to change anything.
Staff's already doing that.
I mean, once an applicant applies for a special exception, you have up to a year to act on it. So,
Right, yes. That's
So
exactly right.
we can slow it down. It's very hard scheduling a meeting. I've got 3 board members who will be here in January. I've got 1 more who will be coming on January 1. The next planning commission meeting after Monday is Thursday, January 20th. My suggestion would be you all hold your organizational meeting at 6 o'clock on January the 20th, then have a joint meeting with the planning commission at 7 o'clock on January the 20th to hash some of these items out. Is that,
That's at their general meeting?
that's their general meeting. Would you rather have a special meeting?
I think we gotta have a special.
I think we need a special meeting, because
Okay.
they may have a lot on their docket,
right.
who knows?
How about the Thursday before that, January the 13th?
I mean, if we had to go into early February, but I mean, the sooner we can start this discussion, the better off we are, so, yeah, January.
Thursday, January 13th.
13 is good for me.
Is that good, Craig?
January 13th.
All right, Brian, you got the meeting Monday night.
I'll let them know.
Let them know that it's Thursday, January 13th. It'll be 7 for that meeting. You all will gather at 6 for an organizational meeting.
Okay.
How about that?
And I'm to understand, the consensus of the board is that projects will be held off
Yep.
from your consideration until after this process, however that goes.
That would
Yes,
be the
I will
planning
amend my
commission.
motion to,
Yeah,
That'd be the planning commission as well as this board.
okay, that's
Am
fine.
I
We've
right?
got the one on the docket for Monday, but nobody else is scheduled after that, and it will not be until you guys give that direction to staff.
Okay. And you're amending your motion?
yeah, I'm gonna add that to my motion, that the board will not consider any more special exceptions for solar until this language is finalized with the planning commission.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, okay. Everybody, can you repeat that entire motion so everybody's
Yes.
clear?
The motion on the floor is to basically table Chapter 6 and to meet with the Planning Commission on January 13th to start hashing out the language to put some limits on what we want to do with solar in the county. And at that, we also will not hear any more special exception approvals until that language is finalized.
And we want to include Mr. Lee.
Well, I gave that to
To Brian.
Yeah, I think that's just sort of internal. I don't necessarily needs to be a part of the motion.
Okay.
I think I'm board's kind of in agreement with that starting point.
Is there gonna be a workshop?
Yes.
All right. Well,
Can I point out something? That would not stop an applicant from
Yeah, I mean, that
applying.
may become part of the process as we look at the comp plan. We have to go back and amend the ordinance based on what we do in the comp plan, and we will do that at that time after we finalize this language. But I think it's important that we kind of figure out exactly where the lay of the land is and put a little bit of pause while we not only switch to new board members and give them a chance to get up to speed. They were just elected by their constituents, so I'm sure they have some input to put on this as well that's
all right.
new.
I know Jim wanted to say something.
Yes, Mr. Cornwell.
Yeah, the way I interpret the motion, this does not stop the application from being made.
Right.
It simply says the board will not consider such applications until after the comp plan is.
Exactly.
Correct.
And that would also be shoot, had a brain cramp. Come on, guys, you know
You
what I'm
mean the
talking
planning
about.
commission?
The planning commission, thank you. Is that correct? That's
Yes.
Yes.
Well, that would be part of the process.
Right.
Well,
For
but he
the,
said the board, and
Yeah.
it's both.
Yeah. All right, you've heard the motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, that's a unanimous vote. Motion carries 100%. All right. Supplemental appropriations.
Mr. Chairman, you've been down this road before when the state approves money for compensation board folks, and then the county feels obligated to match that, that bonus to equalize the funding across the board. The last time the state did this, it was for all compensation board funded employees. This time, it is specifically for sworn officers, sheriff's office employees, funded through the comp board. The county has 23 of those, and I'm asking you to consider matching that $3,000 bonus across the board for all of the full-time employees as well as the social services full-time employees. The reasoning behind that is last year, you gave hazard pay to 56 employees who qualified for that under the old CARES Act. You also granted a $500 bonus in last December, for all full-time employees. The ARPA money is a little bit less strict than the CARES Act, and there were 26 employees in this building who got no hazard pay last year. And to me, that's not fair. This building has been open since June the 8th of 2020, and the people who work in this building have had the same risk as those who received the hazard pay under the old CARES Act. So what I'm asking you to do is to approve that $3,000 bonus for all of your full-time employees, excluding me. It does not include me. That total funding would be $303,000, but $69,000 of that will be reimbursed by the compensation board for those 23 comp board funded sheriff's office sworn employees. So your net expenditure of ARPA funds would be $234,000.
Don, do we have to use the ARPA funds, or we can use the CARE funds that have to be used up by December 24th?
I can't use the CARES fund for the 26 employees in this building who didn't get any hazard pay last year because.
Rules?
Because of rules.
Okay.
Okay.
And why can't this include you?
My contract.
Okay.
All right. I move that we approve the supplemental appropriations that we've been discussing here in the amount of $303,000, and that we would pay the $3,000 bonus for all full-time employees. All right? You've heard the motion. Any further comments or questions? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. That's a unanimous vote. Unanimous vote. All right, Mr. Beal.
I'm
know
sure I
you'll be
speak,
happy.
I'm sure I speak for all the full-time employees here. They're very happy. Thank you.
Yep.
Merry Christmas, right?
And it's Department of Social Services, if you're listening, I'm sure you're shouting right now. All right.
Well, I would just say it's just another one of those kind of things that the state always does, and their infinite wisdom of unfunded mandates, they're good at producing those, so. I do know that they are looking at comp board compensation and studying that, so maybe we'll get wring some more money out of them with the surpluses and the state is doing really well financially.
EDA, you want to do it?
All right, board reports.
Mr. Chairman, at the end of the month, the at-large member that I appointed a while back to the EDA finished out her term and she elected not to continue. Don has put forth a candidate that I think is very good. I'm satisfied with everything that he's put in here, and I would make a motion to approve this person, who is Lisa McLaughlin, as the at-large member to fill the opening on the EDA.
Okay, you've heard the motion. Are you ready to vote? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous vote, okay. Next board report.
Mr. Chairman, I would just say I attended the VACO conference over the weekend. That was a very informative conference. We missed you this year, but I would just like to thank you all again for y'all's support a few years back ago as I was elected this year and moved up in the rank to be president-elect of VACO. So next year, I'll be Mr. President of the organization.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
You're going to change your cell phone number?
All right, I'd like to reappoint Kevin Bean to the Broadband Authority. You heard the motion, all in favor? Say aye. Aye. Unanimous vote. Okay, any other further board reports? County Administrator report.
Mr. Chairman, I had 5 items, but Mr. Bellows took one of them. I was going to congratulate him for president-elect during calendar year 2022 and president of VACO in 2023. He'll be the first Lancaster County person to serve as an officer on VACO. So looking forward to that.
Well, I couldn't have done it without my fellow board members here, so again, I thank you all for your support.
The second item, Sheriff McCraney just asked me to let the board know that if you see any of his deputies around with beards and facial hair, it's because one of his employees has been diagnosed with cancer recently, and this is a fundraising effort by his folks. And all of the money that's raised during the month of November, and he's going to extend this into December, and he said he may do it in January and February as well. All the money that's raised will go toward the American Cancer Society. So if you see any of his deputies around, that's the reason. And he also wanted me to say that if any of you would like to contribute to the American Cancer Society, you can give him some money to go into that pot as well. So.
Grow our beards out.
I'm way ahead of you.
The third thing I have, when you all leave here tonight, I want you to take notice of the parking lot and the lights that are on now, because they've been off for a long time. We've had a lot of maintenance issues that we've been working on for the last couple of months, particularly when our new building inspector and building official came on board. And they prepared a written analysis of what's been going on, and I'm just going to pass this out to you. And I've asked that you take one and take it home and read it. If you have any questions, let me know, and I can help explain it. But there's a lot of things that were left undone, done halfway, and we're trying to correct all those things. So we're making progress there. The fourth thing I have is you heard during public input tonight a request to adopt a First Amendment resolution. Would you all like to do that? Would you like to see it on your December 9th agenda?
Yes. We'd like to see it before then, so we could.
Well, you'll get it a week before.
And I think Mr. Costello hit a point, and I was thinking about that when Mr. Smart was reading it. We need more information. I mean, why this is necessary.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know where it's coming from or anything like that, and maybe we have to have some public input, but I need more information. I'm saying here, we've been operating for hundreds of years, and now we got to have a resolution to tell us,
Well, that's the purpose of me asking you, do you even want me to put it on the agenda?
Yes, because we ought to read it to see what's in it, and how in the world would we ever not want to support the Constitution of the United States and the state of Virginia, for goodness sake?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Why all of a sudden we need a resolution to tell us we need to do this?
Let's read it and see.
Yeah.
Is it, I hate the word consensus, is it the consensus of the board to have it on the December 9th agenda?
Yes.
Okay, all right. All right. The last item, and it's probably the most important tonight, and I hope Jim is still online. We got the census information late last month for redistricting. You know that we have to do this every 10 years. The good part about Lancaster is Glenn, this will actually be his fourth redistricting. The third one, third? I thought you said four, because the first one was without GIS. Okay, all right, so you're not giving you, I'm giving you credit for it, you're not. So, but his third redistricting with GIS. And Glenn, I've got your map that you gave me, if you can cut over to PC2, and there it is, you'll see. Glenn has massaged the census numbers, and I'm gonna let him explain this in a minute. But what I wanna tell you is that in prior redistrictings, the board has put together a citizens committee to assist with that. In talking with Glenn, that has largely been not very useful, because Glenn has the expertise to move these lines, move these numbers, and his experience has been whatever he's come up with, that committee has pretty much rubber stamped and gone on with it. You're going to get your public input when you hold the public hearing on this. That's where the public input will come from. What I'm getting around to is, instead of creating a citizens committee, what I would propose is that Glenn and myself, the registrar, Jim as county attorney, and the town managers and town attorneys get together and try to figure this out. Because you'll recall that there's some language in state code which requires towns to be in their own district. And we've got to, Glenn's having difficulty massaging the numbers to make that happen. So we may end up, if the code will allow, and this is where Jim can come in, having Kilmarnock as a split district. But it's going to, and the towns also have to pass an ordinance to move their town elections from May to November. So that's basically what I'm getting at is we'd like to do it in-house. I'll tell you, Richmond County's doing the same thing. They're doing it in-house. And come back to you at a later date. Probably, it won't be December. It'll be probably January with a plan moving forward for the redistricting. And with that, and if you're going to ask me any specific questions about these numbers, Glenn might be the best person
I
to
don't have a
ask.
specific question necessarily about the numbers, but I do have a point that I want to make that I kind of finally got the answer to over the weekend at the VACO conference, and that was this redistricting and how that affects the current elections that just took place. And what I've finally gotten the answer to is more than likely because of the redistricting and the redrawing of all the districts or at the state level as well, it's going to trigger a special election for 100 General Assembly members next year as a result of that redrawn and not being in time. So we're going to have they're going to be up for basically a special election 1-year term next November as a result of this. I'm assuming the same thing is going to be triggered here in Lancaster County, so the 2 board members that were just elected will be thrown into a special election potentially as a result of these being redrawn, and they're potentially having different members now within their district. Even if just one member switches from, say, in Mr. Larson or Dr. Westbrook's current from November election, if even one member of the community changes for one reason or a number, that would trigger a special election for those seats. I've been asking this question for some time, and no one's been able to answer it, and I finally kind of got the answer wrangled out of somebody over the weekend. It was like, that's...
Well, I'm glad you did, but I don't see the difference between y'all who have been, you got 2 more years before your next election, but you're going on what happened 2 years ago. What's the difference?
That's a good question. Normally, those districts would be redrawn in time for the November election, but they were not. But I get your point too, as well as
I'm
like
just saying-
our districts may be out of line too.
Maybe we wait till somebody.
I do not have an answer to that, but I just wanted to throw that out there because it is something that it's been on my mind for some time, and I've been asking it for a while, and I've never gotten the answer, but I did get an answer this past weekend.
I know you've been asking that for a while. So Glenn, if you would, I'll let you explain your highlighted columns because they are relevant. And Jim, chime in if you have anything to add as well.
Is it okay if I just stay right here?
Yeah.
So I can, okay.
Can you boost this a little bit so we can read the numbers?
Let me see.
Just to comment on Mr. Bellows' question about what happens to the to the other 3 members of the Board of Supervisors, I would say that since you were elected at a time when these election these current election districts were valid, I would say that you would be fine until your next re-election date.
But the same
that would be my opinion.
The
Anyway.
same thing is true of the election we just had. The election was held when those districts were this one, were the way they were, and now they've changed the districts.
I
So
defer
what's
to
the difference?
I defer to the county attorney and Mr. Bellows on that. That's because
I'm not ready to go anywhere on this. I suspect that the redistricting should have occurred before the November election.
Yes.
Which would have changed the districts for those people being elected in November. I don't think that, my initial opinion is, even if, say, for instance, Mr. Bellows' district changed, his election was not in November, it was previous, and his would continue in office, and the next election would be under the new district.
Yes.
But I've had discussions with the registrar about this. We're particularly concerned about the split district issue. We're concerned about Kilmarnock being people in Northumberland County being in the town limit of Kilmarnock. It makes it interesting. So I think that the proposal for this working group is right on line. We need to, and I'm hoping the General Assembly might actually address this in the next session, but who knows?
All right.
Okay, so I'm not going to take a whole lot of time here. I just wanted to explain what this map really is. The map portion of this is just showing the districts as they are currently constituted. The chart at the bottom of the map it shows basically what that is the 2020 census data grouped according to the existing election district boundaries. And if you look at the column all the way over there on the right that's shaded in green, that shows that we still have over 50% minority population in districts 2 and district 4, which is good because that's our target. But if you look at the column that's shaded in yellow, back over on the left-hand side of the chart, what that represents is the deviation, the percentage deviation from the equal population in each district. And what we're supposed to shoot for there, according to state law, I believe, is a spread of 10%. And what you see there, that the highest deviation, the greatest deviation that we have on the high side would be in District 5 at 7.62%, and the greatest deviation on the low end is going to be in District 2 at 6.75. So you have a total deviation there of a little over 14%, and we need to get that down under 10%. We need to get the districts equal within that 10% spread. And I've been working with the data for a couple of weeks now, and and I've been able to tweak the census blocks here and there to get the deviation within that 10% tolerance. And if I keep the town of Kilmarnock spread out over multiple districts, I can even keep the minority population over 50% in districts 2 and 4. If I'm in a situation, if I'm having to put all of Kilmarnock in District 4, the best I've been able to do as far as the minority percentage in District 4 is right around 44.5% to 45%. So that's where I am with it right now. So I don't know the the legal issues behind whether or not we can keep Kilmarnock split. That's that's kind of above my pay grade. I'm basically driving the mapping software here.
What's the issue with the town being split? Because it's always been that way.
Well,
Or been that way for a considerable amount of time, I guess, since the last census or before.
Well, it's new code language, and you remember a few months ago, we had to pass a resolution requesting the State Department of Elections to grant us a waiver for the 2021 election for Kilmarnock to have a split district. Jim, can you add
Is this part
into
when
that?
they changed the date from May to be coinciding with theirs, they put that caveat in?
No, they did it by a separate code section that basically did not permit split districts in towns. And I don't know the General Assembly's reasoning for that. I mean, it's always worked before, but I assume that the town and city lobby decided they wanted to be in one election district, and that's what they got.
Hence the need for us to meet with the towns and have all these attorneys together to try to figure this out. So.
Or sell tickets.
That's really all. I just wanted to bring this up because I'm sure you've heard about redistricting. Like I said, we just got the information.
Do you need a motion for y'all to do that internally, or you just want
I don't believe we need a motion. Jim can correct me if I'm wrong, but in prior redistricting, we had always used a citizen committee, but as I said, we didn't see a whole lot of value to that.
We can see that the current commission that was designed was useless as well. This was disbanded, and the Supreme Court is now hearing that this going to have to draw the districts for what was supposed to be the nonpartisan commission, but it became pretty much an extension of the General Assembly and became so partisan that they couldn't get to an answer, and now it's in the Supreme Court.
Yeah. You know, if we can keep Kilmarnock as a split district moving forward, I think we can get the numbers.
Well, it sounds like to me it kind of runs into some of the civil rights stuff that's required, and that seems to me that would supersede the other one. I mean, and if it were to come down to a legal opinion or a legal case, that would be, in my opinion, that would supersede it, but who knows?